gypsies.
Is that right?
They label themselves
Well, after
gypsies.
the musical?
Well, no, that is the gayest question I've ever been asked. No, because they jump from show to show, don't they? So they're in one show for a while, then they travel down the street to another show and travel around.
I see.
And so they label themselves that way, and they kind of like it. I don't think they'd be bothered. I always think, like with anything, it's the intention behind the word, really.
I don't think the entomologists ever really intended to offend anyone with their classification of the moth.
I don't think they did.
No. I don't think anyone thought they did either. That's the thing about it.
I didn't know about Romani people until I came here. And one night I was playing a comedy club in central London, and a family came in, and they were dressed so beautifully. I mean, just like Christmas crackers. They looked fantastic.
Yeah.
And the staff were determined to get them out of the club by the intermission, by the first intermission.
Why?
Because they were worried about what they might do, how they might behave. I thought they were lovely. I mean, they were fantastic.
So there was a prejudice.
And they were kicked out.
Wow. Okay.
And they were wondering why.
So there is a prejudice there.
There is.
Right. So no one's denying that. But I don't think changing the name of a moth is going to address
change
that
any of that.
I just realised this is where entomology meets etymology, isn't it?
That's very smart.
That's quite a clever remark. It's not funny, but it's clever.
It is smart. I like that. Yeah.
But that's the question: is the etymology? Because why are people obsessed with language? It's the language that seems to be the thing now. What is changing to spongy moth going to achieve?
Well, this is a lot of what this culture war is about. Is people trying to change and control language in whatever way they can, even if it's minor little gestures here and there, because it's just a kind of it's a component of a broader coercive strategy, I think.
I'd like to wipe out moths. I would.
Well, they're not nice creatures.
No, they're horrible. And I'm a big fan of cashmere and wool. They've made my life a nightmare. Seriously.
Well,
it's been a disaster.
Scott is the victim here. Don't forget. All right, so let's move on. This next question we've got is from Dan. Where is Dan? Hello, Dan.
Hi. Have you ever been triggered by seeing a fisherman?
Oh, yes. Well, Captain Birdseye bothered me as a child. I found his beard terrifying. But this is not about that. This is to do with the University of the Highlands and Islands decision to tell students that Ernest Hemingway's novel, The Old Man and the Sea, contains graphic scenes of fishing. Yeah. OK, that's sort of what the whole book is about. That's all that happens in that book, you know? And I mean, he goes out to get this big fish. He gets a couple of big fish, straps into the boat.
Yeah.
But the sharks keep eating bits of the fish, and I never really knew what that was about, to be honest.
If you had one of those TV warnings, it would say features graphic fishing throughout, wouldn't it? Throughout. From the beginning and throughout.
The fishing never ends in that
It's about
book.
the breaking of dreams, is what that book is about. The novel's about chasing something that you'll never
have.
achieve. Yeah. And he's an old man. He's coming to the end of his life, and he thinks, this is the last thing I want to do with my life, and then it just doesn't happen.
But why would the loss of the fish require a warning for adults who are reading the book?
I think it's for younger people who have dreams and don't want them dashed. And
is that really...
No one wants to tell people nowadays that they can't potentially have everything that they want.
That's far too sophisticated. It's about harm to fish, isn't it? It's about PETA or someone worrying about abuse of a big fish, isn't it?
We don't know.
I've got no idea.
Because it actually makes no sense whatsoever. I mean, look, I get the argument about some trigger warnings insofar as if there's a text that is a particularly violent or graphic imagery and people have suffered trauma, so the argument goes that you want to protect them from that, even though all experts in trauma say that's the worst thing you can do, and actually you shouldn't be at all.
It's not a good argument.
It's not a good argument, it is the argument.
But you can't even see the bad argument.
What I'm saying is I can't apply even that terrible argument to this book.
But fish are cute, and people don't want to kill them. They think it's brutal. I mean, I've had vegetarians say to me, I'm a vegetarian, but I eat fish. They whisper that I eat fish in my ear. And I don't know what that's called. I think it's called, oh, you're a liar. Then you're not a vegetarian.
Exactly, that's what it's called. I think fish are vile. Fish aren't cute.
They're adorable.
They're horrible.
No, they're animated
slimy little things without lungs and stuff.
But again, you're a vegetarian, aren't you?
Yes.
Yes, so you're a liar. So everything you're saying is untrue. Fish are animated, and people keep them in tanks. They live with them. They want them in the house. They don't think about being fished out of the water.
Although, can I just point out, no actual fish were killed in the writing of that novel, so there is that. Can I just say, this was made into a movie in 1958, and it received a U rating. And yet in 2022, it requires a trigger warning.
Are we just becoming more weak and sensitive?
Absolutely.
I mean, I know you think that because you think the decline of the West is based on a loss of masculinity, right?
It's specifically you guys. You become. No, of course we are. It was
You're
okay.
representing testosterone tonight.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. It was okay in 1958, and now it's not for some students. Absolutely bizarre. I say don't go to university. Just go fishing, read Hemingway, and go out fishing. You'll learn more than an entire university course.
What do we? I remember
in English, not in like good stuff like science.
I do remember being disturbed when I saw fishing when I was a small child, and I saw them, the fishermen sort of hitting the fish's neck to get the hook out of his mouth.
They don't have necks. They're fish. They don't have necks.
Well, whatever. What's the bit between?
You're imagining it. You're making all that. You're lying again.
I'm lying again. Okay, fine.
If you want to get stronger, eat fish, read the book.
That was my trauma that you've just denied me. I can't believe you've done that to me. Okay, well, but one thing I would say is that the thing we always used to watch as kids was Watership Down, which is a brutal film where you see dogs ripping rabbits to pieces with blood going everywhere.
What about
and that
Bambi?
Was you? That was you, Bambi?
Bambi was traumatic.
What, didn't the mother die in that?
Yeah, the mother suddenly died. It's one of the most traumatic scenes you'll ever see.
No, she deserved it.
But that's appropriate. It's appropriate. You always tell hunters, kill the parents so the babies can survive. You always tell them that.
So it was quite humane.
It was, yeah. And, you know, some women are lippy anyway. But yes, it's for the best, I think.
Right, well, let's move on now. Now we've alienated half of the audience, and we've got time for one more question. This is from Katie. Katie.
Hi.
Hi.
Have you ever met a fascist baby?
Have I ever met a fascist baby? Yeah, I should say so. I think babies are all fascists. You know, they won't shut up. They scream all through the night. They ruin your life.
Yeah.
Yeah, very militant. This is about a story in The Sun this week. This was a woman, she'd written on Mumsnet, and she said she'd spent 9 months deciding on a baby's name. And ultimately she came up with Oswald, Ozzy for short. And of course, her friends all said, oh, you mean Oswald Mosley? You've named the baby after... Why would they jump to that?
Well, can I just say, I don't mind this as long as the first two names aren't Lee Harvey, because that's the far more salient problem. When you Google Oswald, it immediately comes up with Lee Harvey Oswald.
Yeah.
Now, maybe she's arguing he didn't actually do it, which is a point, you know what I mean? Who actually did it?
You think she's naming her baby to make a point about Lee Harvey?
To make a point about the killing of JF Kennedy. She's saying it was Jack Ruby on this, not up there to this. Anyway, it's a complicated story, but it wasn't Oswald. So that's cool what she did. The fact is, the reason it's okay is that people are so ignorant now, they have no idea who Oswald Mosley even is, and that will save it.
But apparently they do.
But the Lee Harvey Oswald thing will actually be more relevant because everyone knows who that is.
Maybe that would be a better way to go about it. But I just think I worry about this. Scott, why should it be that a name becomes ruined once a bad person has that name? You know, why should there be no more Oswalds?
Exactly. I mean, maybe she's going for Ozzy Osbourne anyway. Maybe she wants the baby to be a rocker who bites the heads off bats. Maybe that's what
I mean, that's no better, is it? Isn't that how coronavirus started?
A little bit. Maybe she doesn't believe in the virus, and she's saying, look, my babies. The thing is, I'm not a big fan of babies. I think they're fascists. I think you're right. I think they are fascists.
Yeah, they grow out of it.
Well, they won't wear masks. They're anti-vax. I think
I'm starting to like them.
I think babies are a problem. I think that mums also obsess about stuff, and there's a lot of mothers online worried about things, and they argue brutally with one another.
Oh, yeah.
I have some friends who are mothers, and they're very cantankerous, and they take each other on.
What do you think? This is just a way to sort of attack? You're saying, oh, you've named your baby after a fascist.
I think they've got a few syndromes after giving birth, and I think they're just yelling at one another about nothing, really.
Well, maybe. Potentially. Well, we didn't solve any of that, but we did explore it, so that was fun. After the break on Free Speech Nation, we're going to be discussing whether the cultural boycott of Russia has gone too far. See you in a couple of minutes.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Has the cultural boycott of Russia gone too far? So that's the question that was posed this week by the political commentator Patrick West. It comes after the Bolshoi Ballet's tour was cancelled by the Royal Opera House, while the famous conductor Valery Gergiev has been sacked by the Munich Philharmonic Orchestra for failing to condemn Vladimir Putin. So to discuss this, I'm joined by the editor of Spiked Online, Tom Slater, everyone. Tom, so you've been talking and writing an awful lot about Russia. This is an interesting angle. Obviously, a lot of people are talking about the geopolitics of it. This is more about the cultural aspect of it. Do you think there is a risk that we are sort of overreacting when it comes to these kind of cultural boycotts?
I think we definitely are. I mean, it seems like there's a tendency nowadays, our response to everything, particularly in the kind of cultural sphere, is either to call for censorship or to just engage in kind of vapid virtue signalling. And I think these cultural boycotts are where those two things kind of meet.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the examples you've already listed, you've had major film companies which have pulled out all of their theatrical releases from Russia. And on the flip side, you also have the treatment of Russian artists in the West and in Western countries, which is becoming increasingly unsettling. I mean, it's become slightly McCarthyite. You mentioned the case of Valery Gergiev, who was dropped by the Munich Philharmonic. He does have links to Vladimir Putin, but it was essentially issued with an ultimatum: either condemn Putin and condemn the war or lose your job. And I feel like that atmosphere has a very kind of toxic element to it, which could actually play into Putin's hands.
Why does this happen all the time? Why do people go after artists who are from particular countries or travelling to particular countries? Why is there an expectation that they should have a political input?
Well, as you suggest, I mean, this hasn't kind of come out of the clear blue. There's been kind of discussions in recent years about boycotts, cultural boycotts of Israel, other different kind of states where, again, if there's been some sort of horrendous situation, invasion or whatever. But it seems particularly potent at the moment. And I think there's just it's a product of hysteria in large part. And there's a couple of examples I think really demonstrate that. So there was a gentleman called Kirill Sokolov, who's a Russian filmmaker. He has denounced the war in Ukraine. He's got Ukrainian family. He's got family members in Kiev at the moment who are kind of, waiting for their fate. And yet he had his film dropped from the Glasgow Film Festival. There was another instance of a young man called Alexander Malefev, who is a pianist, and he was due to perform in Vancouver in Canada. Because the people who were organising the recital couldn't find any denunciation of the war in his social media accounts or whatever, they just dropped it. And again, this is just creating a genuinely quite McCarthyite atmosphere, I think. And I think it really contributes and burnishes the narrative of Russia, which is essentially trying to say they are going after all Russians because they want to destroy Russia. Anyone with a Russian name is being discriminated in the West. And it's just fueling that narrative, as well as shutting down cultural exchange and cultural discussion.
So some of those examples you've given, so people who are even sort of with, as you say, family members in Ukraine, people who haven't been vocal enough. I mean, I remember that something happened with Taylor Swift a while ago, where Taylor Swift hadn't come out and said that she didn't support Donald Trump. And therefore she became the target of a lot of online ire, shall we say. And again, it goes back to this weird expectation that these people are meant to be spokespeople. But then also, what about this thing about going back through history? I mean, I know they backtracked at Milan with the Dostoevsky course, but that kind of thing is quite interesting. Let's stop teaching Dostoevsky. How can you account for that kind of thing? Because there's no logic behind this, surely.
Well, there's not, and as you say, as you've already mentioned on the show, it has that absurd irony, given the fact that Dostoevsky spent time in a prison camp for reading banned books that were critical of the Tsarist regime.
Yeah.
But I think examples like that just show you that we're in quite a hysterical climate, and people are making decisions on the hoof, not recognising that they can have quite discriminatory and kind of censorious consequences, and even not just checking their facts. I mean, obviously there's been a lot of discussion about the Russian state ballets, which have been clamped down upon. Those are linked to the Russian state. It's not to say that they should be banned, but nevertheless. But the Russian state opera has also had a load of events cancelled in the UK. The Russian state opera is actually a branding name. It's a UK-based company. It has no links to the Russian government. It's not funded by any Russian organisation.
You can see why people would think it had.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And in that case, you can definitely see it. But I suppose the point I'm making is people are kind of just going to ban first, ask questions later, and I think that's a very bad position to be in.
Is there a case, though, for any kind of boycotts? I mean, I know a lot of people have boycotted, for instance, when it comes to Israel and the politics over there, people have boycotted products from Israel and that kind of thing. Is there a case for doing that if you feel that way about a particular regime or a particular scenario?
Well, I think the difficulty is with all of these boycotts, and particularly in the case of Israel, is that you're essentially conflating artists and individual citizens, whether it's of Russia or Israel or anywhere else, with the actions of their government, which is a really unpleasant kind of slippage that takes place. And even when people try and make kind of neater arguments for it, they say, well, if they receive state funding. I mean, if you think about all the arts institutions, all of the independent filmmakers who receive money from the UK government. That's
Yes.
a very slippery slope. So I also think the other thing is there's a tendency to be very almost like self-congratulating. People think that this is really what's going to make the difference. And if you think, one of the examples at the moment is Disney have pulled their upcoming Pixar release, which is called Turning Red, which is a film about a young girl who, when she gets too stressed, turns into a giant red panda.
Yes.
The idea that prohibiting Russian 8-year-olds from watching this is going to shift the dial in Vladimir Putin's mind is absurd as well as kind of slightly cruel.
So you think it's just an opportunity for corporations and people like Disney to make a statement or be seen to be making a statement?
I think it is virtue signalling, but it's virtue signalling that comes at a cost, because I think if you treat all Russian audiences or all Russian artists, regardless of their perspective on the current conflict, as essentially morally tainted by dint of the actions of Vladimir Putin, it comes with a very real consequence, which is to say to kind of, again, burnish the narrative of the Russian government itself, which is to suggest that they do just hate you. They hate Russia, and that's why they're doing all these things.
But then where would you stand on, for instance, the freezing of the assets of oligarchs based in London or that kind of thing? Would that make more sense to you?
Well, it's an entirely different question, because that's about, are there particular individuals who are benefiting from the current regime financially, who are propping it up? That's a kind of a question around politics, around the economic response. But I just don't think any of these questions are transferable neatly to the cultural sphere. And actually, again, they can come at a consequence, because I think the more that you can encourage that level of kind of cross-border discussion, artistic exchange, the more the better. And a lot of the people we're talking about here are quite liberal-minded people. They might not be able to say that because of the clampdown that's going on in Russia at the moment and over the course of the past decade or so. But you're alienating those people as well. You're giving them less ability to speak out, and that surely can't be a good thing either.
What do you make, then, of the EU's decision to ban, for instance, Russia Today? I believe there was a moment where it was temporarily banned here in the UK. Maybe you can explain what happened there.
Yeah, so Russia Today, it was across the EU, there was this move to ban it. And in the UK, we've had Nadine Dorries, the culture secretary, who's kind of become the censorship secretary in some respects in recent months, going after everyone from Jimmy Carter, Russia Today, has written to Ofcom basically calling for it to take action. It's actually fallen, I believe, off of Sky, off of people's Sky boxes, because of the fact it was hosted in Luxembourg, so it's been affected by the EU measures. But there's this general approach to it. Now, is Russia Today a different proposition from a ballet company? Certainly. I mean, they're spouting the Putin line, spreading all of this misinformation about Ukraine and this just being a peacekeeping mission, all the rest of it. But at the same time, it sets a really alarming precedent. We've seen retaliatory measures against the BBC, despite the fact that the BBC is growing in popularity in Russia. And also, it just seems to get the problem completely the wrong way around. I mean, Russia Today has quite a small audience in the UK, something like 3,000 people a day watch it. So this is not going to help. But again, the consequences of it are to legitimise censorship and to actually legitimise censorship in Russia as well, which is something we don't want to see.
But I mean, something that occurs to me when all of this stuff is once we start into these debates about whether this ballet company should be there or this film should be shown and all this kind of... It is a major distraction from the issues that we should actually be discussing, isn't it? Or is it just a way for people to sort of get involved but not really get involved, you know?
I think there is a big part of that. I also think, and you all have noticed this and you've written a lot about it, which is the way in which kind of everything has become politicised now. I mean, there's a tendency towards that in times of war and conflict and all the rest of it. But you do feel like whether it's on domestic issues, whether it's on these cultural war issues we're talking about, or genuine conflicts, there is this expectation that you must do something and you must say something, even if what you're expected to say is not that helpful, and what you're being asked to do or being expected to do could actually do more harm than good. But this kind of politicisation of everything, I think, has very negative consequences, especially for freedom of speech and for the arts, because there is just this tendency to, as I say, kind of ban first and ask questions later.
Tom Slater, thank you very much for joining me.
Thank you.
So after the break on Free Speech Nation, we'll speak to the woman who says she was blocked from joining an LGBTI+ group in the Scottish Parliament because she was viewed as being the wrong sort of lesbian. See you in a couple of minutes.
GBNews is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. So later in the show, I'm going to be turning agony uncle with the help of my panel, Nick Dixon and Scott Capurro, to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. So if you have any problems in life whatsoever, just email us. It's the obvious thing to do. Email us at gbviews@gbnews.uk and we will try to answer your issues. Believe me, we will get this right. We will sort your life out. Now, this part of the show is called Devil's Advocate. This is where our panellists discuss one of the big issues of the day. Now, I did ask what they wanted to debate today, and I was told whether it's better to be gay or straight. I'm a bit nervous about this and where this is going to go, and how many people we're potentially going to offend. But look, let's give it a go and see what happens. So first, arguing that it is better to be gay, it's Nick Dixon.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. I mean, I'm going to give it a go. I thought, as the only straight person on the panel, do you know what I mean? I better just be careful what I say. So I'll go pro-gay, because as a minority, you've got to be careful sometimes. I think it is better to be gay. I mean, look, for a start, they look great. I mean, look at Scott, you know, a man of his age who was heterosexual. What? I'm saying he looks amazing. Ever since I've known him, he always looks amazing. And that's obviously because gay people can look in the mirror and they can objectively tell if they would fancy themselves. It's a brilliant system, you know what I mean? They're essentially, I mean, you know, they're narcissistic monsters, but it works. I mean, a straight man, it's a stab in the dark, we've got no idea. So that's one, number one. Number two, and I'm talking about gay men here, I have no time for lesbians in this debate, not in general. Crikey. Gay men, I'm going to offend everyone here. Gay men, let's be honest, they don't have to deal with women. That is a huge bonus. I mean, if it wasn't for biological imperatives, would men, straight men, even speak to women? You've got to ask. I mean, think about it. They make you take the bins out. They don't understand football. They ask, oh, who's that in the movie all the time? I was like, I don't know. It's just started. So I'm saying, what's the upside? Whereas a gay man, let's face it, they can choose to eschew women entirely and live in an entirely rational world, almost a utopia. Except for that was over the line. Okay, obviously, the problem is if everyone was a gay man, the species would die out. That's the problem with it and why it's inherently wrong. But anyway, the last point is the great put-downs you get to do, sort of sassy put-downs. Think about it. As a gay man, you can get away with saying a lot more. Very helpful in comedy, especially. It's less the case now that other groups have come up and said, no, we're more oppressed than you. But for decades, you could say horribly offensive things as a gay man and get away with it. That if they were said by a normal person, would get you in terrible trouble. So in summary, this wasn't my idea. It was Scott. In summary, they look good, don't have to deal with women, they can say what they want. So in that, overall, it is actually better to be gay. And we can ignore for now the fact that they're all going to hell. Thank you.
Well, there we go. OK, he's not coming back. Now, arguing that it is better to be straight, it's Scott Capurro.
Well, there is an advantage to gay men. It's a big responsibility, Andrew. Look, there's so many things to worry about. There's financial fluidity. There's gender fluidity. It's too many fluids. I cannot, at my age, produce that much. And also, we're expected to make heterosexuals like Nick feel better about marriage because they messed it up. So they gave it to the gays to fix it. And we're supposed to make it bright and shiny because we're so good at makeovers. Look, marriage is a nightmare. They didn't warn us. Now I'm unhappy, like everybody else in this room. Like these guys, I'll be at Sainsbury's tomorrow thinking chicken or fish, which is a lie. I'll be at Waitrose, obviously. But the point is, it's a nightmare for us. Gay men can adopt now. That's too many rights. The responsibility of children. The one thing we had was that we didn't have to be around meatloafs. Now we're expected to raise the kids, get married, and be happy. It's just never going to work. I just think it was better. It would be better if I could be a little hairball like that one over there, sitting at home, yelling at the screen, waiting for my pizza to be microwaved. I've never had a microwave pizza. I'm gay. If I did that, they'd take away my membership card. Instead, I've got to shave my back and be nice to everybody. It's terrifying.
OK, Scott Capurro, everyone. Well, I'm convinced either way. I thought they were both wonderful. But enough of this frivolity. We must move on to something more serious now. So, a gay rights campaigner says critics of the Scottish Government's transgender reforms are being excluded from the political process in the country. Dr. Shireen Benjamin, who's a senior lecturer at the University of Edinburgh, tried to join the Scottish Parliament's LGBT group as a representative of For Women Scotland. But her application was turned down. As I say, she's a member of For Women Scotland, which opposes the SNP's plans to overhaul the Gender Recognition Act. And earlier this week, Dr. Benjamin said she was viewed as, quote, the wrong sort of lesbian. I'm delighted to say Dr. Shireen Benjamin joins me now on Free Speech Nation. Thanks very much for joining me today, Dr. Benjamin. Can I ask you what did you meant by that, the wrong sort of lesbian?
Well, I mean, it was a bit of a flippant comment, really, but it was making a serious point in that the lobby groups that purport to speak for everybody who now finds themselves under the LGBTI plus umbrella all advocate for policy solutions or policy measures that are based on an uncritical acceptance of gender identity theory. So in the Scottish context, that means they're all advocating for self-identification, for changes to the law, changes to the Gender Recognition Act that would give people the right to self-declare their gender without medical safeguards. And those groups, a lot of which get a lot of their funding from the Scottish Government, all advocate with one voice for self-identification in this context, for those kinds of measures, as if they're speaking for all lesbians, gay men, bisexuals, transgender identifying people, as if we all have one set of views on this controversial topic, which of course is absurd. You know, lots of lesbians and gay men and bisexual people and transgender identifying people have concerns about self-identification, have concerns about the consequences that it'll have, particularly for women's rights. And for lesbians, many of us see ourselves as same-sex attracted, not same-gender attracted. And there's this real sense that if you don't go along with this line that the lobby groups take, that you are somehow beyond the pale of civilized conversation. Your views are so odious that you can't be engaged with. You're almost a non-person. And that was what I expressed as the wrong sort of lesbian, which was a bit of a flippant way to put it, but it's a serious point.
No, I understand the point you're making. But what I don't understand is if this is what they call an LGBTI plus group within the Scottish Parliament, and presumably this is about consultation, they want to hear different views on this subject so that they can move forward, wouldn't they want to hear other opinions on this?
Well, you would think so, wouldn't you? So the cross-party groups, if I can just give you a bit of context, the cross-party groups in the Scottish Parliament are opportunities for MSPs to meet with members of the public, people with an interest in whatever the topic is. And they're opportunities for those members of the public, who are often members of groups, to influence politicians, to have access to MSPs that they wouldn't otherwise have. Now, the LGBTI I think it's LGBTI plus cross-party group, all the members of it are from, most of the members are either from the lobby groups that support the Scottish Government's proposed direction of travel, or individuals who also have those views. And back in, I think it was September, at the September meeting of that group, they minuted an intention to go wider, to get a broader section of views. Just to give you another piece of context, the Scottish Government has been spectacularly bad at accessing the range of views. They've been spectacularly bad at engaging with evidence and arguments from people who don't support their preferred narrative. They've also been spectacularly bad at addressing the climate for discussion. So you'll hear parliamentarians standing up and saying it's such a toxic debate, it's so polarised, but they haven't been doing anything to get people around in the same space to have respectful dialogue. Anyway, so back in September, this cross-party group minuted its intention to seek a wider range of views. And one of the constituencies they mentioned in their minutes was they wanted to reach out to women, to women's groups. So we saw that in For Women Scotland. We thought, hooray, this is brilliant. We've got at last a group within the Scottish Parliament that wants to have dialogue, that wants to engage with a range of views, wants to construct some kind of space for respectful dialogue with people who have very divergent opinions. We were really pleased to see that. So we talked it over, and we agreed that I would write to the chair of that group and ask to be admitted as a representative of For Women Scotland, which actually was really scary because some of the people on that group have a history of taking quite extreme positions. So it would have felt a bit like going into the lion's den, but I'm really serious about needing respectful discussion in the space. So I applied to join
some people
them
in that group had smeared For Women Scotland by associating them with the KKK, I believe, or is that accurate?
I'm afraid it is, yeah. Last year, there was a cartoon that was doing the rounds, which depicted For Women Scotland as the Ku Klux Klan. And after it was shared, For Women Scotland got a lot of very disgusting misogynist abuse, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And at least, so 3 of the people who were on that group, who were on the LGBTI cross-parliament group, not the MSPs, the other people, shared that cartoon online. And
well, if we're
I'm not
talking about
censorious.
toxic debates, I mean, this is interesting to me because surely if their concern is about the toxicity of the debate, and they have people within the group who are clearly contributing to the toxicity of the debate by smearing For Women Scotland in that terrible way, but moreover, are not the SNP themselves contributing to the toxicity of the debate, given that they routinely will say women such as yourself, lesbians who say that they are same-sex attracted, not same-gender attracted, and actually women who say that sex as a biological category is essential for the preservation of women's rights, that those people are the equivalent of Nazis or fascists and, or beyond the pale. Isn't that toxic in of itself?
I would think so. If I could just go back to the cartoon, because I do actually think this is important, that, and there's 2 points I think I want to make about it. One is I'm not censorious. I think if people want to distribute offensive material, there isn't a requirement not to be offended. But what I want to do for that, so those 3 people in that group who shared that material, I'd like to sit around a table with them and explain to them what I do think, why I think it's important to defend the rights that women have won on the basis of sex that we still need. I want to have that conversation. I want them to look me in the eye, human being to human being, and explain to me why they think my views are analogous with the Ku Klux Klan, why they think my views are on a par with the views and actions of white supremacists who burned people's houses down and strung people up on the trees to die. I'd quite like to have that conversation. And I don't think they could defend it, but I think in having that conversation, we would actually be able to move on. That would reduce the toxicity.
I mean, that is a key point, isn't it? That they're not meeting with you. They're not seeing you as a human being. They're conjuring this image. The way that all forms of demonisation and dehumanisation occur is that they don't know the people, so they can create these false images of them. And surely that's the reason why you needed to be represented, so that it can become an adult conversation again.
That's exactly it. And the other point I would want to make is that at the meeting, so what happened at the meeting, as I gather, not a single person who was at that meeting supported our application. So we were unanimously turned down. I haven't been given a reason. I was just told they didn't support it. I wasn't told why. But there were 7 MSPs who were at that meeting who voted against admitting us. So they're saying they're okay about sitting around a table with people who've shared that kind of material online, which is very inflammatory and very dehumanizing, as you've said, but they're not okay about sitting around a table with me. So I'd quite like to ask them why that is. I'd quite like them to tell me why that's all right. And, you know, if any of those MSPs go on the record over the next few months, as they probably will, saying that the debate is toxic, well, they only have themselves to blame. You know, that's utter hypocrisy, I think.
I think that's an excellent point. Dr. Benjamin, thanks so much for joining me today on Free Speech Nation. So, when asked about the reasons for Dr. Benjamin's rejection, Jamie Green and Emma Roddick, who are the Tory and SNP MSPs who are co-conveners of the cross-party group, issued a joint statement. They said, as is standard practice, the GPC considers all new requests to join at each meeting with applications determined democratically by existing members. The LGBTI plus CPG remains committed to furthering the rights of and bettering the lives of Scotland's LGBTI community. So, no answer. They don't give a reason there why. They just say, we all voted, we didn't like it. Great, thanks for that. Maybe something more clear would be better next time. Anyway, after the break on Free Speech Nation, I'm going to be bringing you a clip from my new podcast. This week, I have been speaking to the broadcaster and British art historian, Andrew Graham Dixon.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking like another dry day, and a fine day actually, with plenty of sunshine for many areas. Let's take a look at the detail. First thing, in the southwest, it's going to be largely cloudy, but through the day there will be sunny spells across the region, remaining dry but still a little chilly. Moving further east towards London, another dry start, but chilly here too. Staying dry throughout the day, with sunny or bright spells for many. Moving to South Wales, and it's going to be a bright but chilly start, with a frost for many, feeling warmer though by the afternoon in the sunshine. Towards the northwest of England, a bright but frosty start, especially across coastlines, staying dry throughout the day with sunny spells for all across the region. Further east, it's going to be dry and chilly, and a frost across the area. Long sunny spells throughout the day, but still feeling cold in the afternoon. Now over to Scotland, where it's a very similar story. Sunshine throughout the morning for the area, no rain, but frosty first thing. Northern Ireland seeing a morning of sunshine after a chilly and calm start as well to the new working week, turning breezier throughout the rest of the day, but at least remaining dry. And those are all the details. Plenty of long-lived sunshine and dry weather across the UK to be had. And that's how the weather's shaping up during tomorrow morning.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. You're about to see an excerpt from my long interview with the broadcaster and British art historian, Andrew Graham Dixon. In our conversation, we spoke about the role of the art critic, the work he's doing on his new book, and whether or not you can separate the art from the artist when it comes to questions of morality.
I don't like this idea that everything is just rules. Every case is different. I mean, my book about Caravaggio again, didn't quite start out like that, but it ends up because I felt I properly understood him and those around him and why they argued and what their codes were. So I think if you read my book, you might think, well, actually, if Caravaggio hadn't killed that man, who was a really nasty man, he ran a group of female prostitutes in Rome, and they were very young, and he was very brutal with them. So he was a really unpleasant guy. And Caravaggio, who was friends with some of these prostitutes whom he painted, but they were his models, and he seems to have protected on the streets of Rome when things went wrong in their lives. He was so if you read all that, and then you think, oh, okay, so the man he castrated or tried to castrate was actually, somebody with serial convictions of a sexual assault and murder. And was really unpleasant. And they had no police force in those days. And if you were going to do anything, you take the law into your hands. If you did it, so that is slightly different. But then, everything is different when you look at it closely from what you necessarily imagine. I'm not saying Caravaggio was a saint or that he was necessarily what I would call a good man. But it's more complicated than the stereotype or the newspaper headline. Just look behind the newspaper headline.
I mean, that's interesting, though, because, I mean, that did happen, and we're going back maybe even 10 years
in past cases, you see, that's the thing. It comes out, and then you have to make a judgment, and it's it's interesting as to whether you cancel that person completely, or do you use the website of the institution to furnish extra details. And I think it's very good that these questions are being asked, and it's very good that you have these new standards that are really thought about and interrogated and properly inspected. But it's very, very difficult to come up with an absolute rule that will cover all cases. You have to assess each and every case on its merit.
It's difficult, though, isn't it? I mean, I wrote a piece saying that I didn't at all approve of the man taking the hammer to the Eric Gill statue. I was trying to say it's perfectly possible to appreciate that statue without at all endorsing anything that the man did. And some of the reactions I got were people they don't think that's possible at all.
I would tend to agree with you, but I would also respect their feelings.
No, I understand the strength of feeling because it's a horrible crime. I completely understand that. But
Eric Gill is probably one of the hardest.
Yeah, he is.
of characters that cases that I've thought about, and a lot came out in that biography. So, yeah, it's a very tough one.
But then, even going back further, I mean, if you take Cellini, and in Cellini's autobiography, he's not a nice person. He's killed people. He's committed sexual assault. One of the people he has sex with is underage, most definitely. And then you go and then you see his Perseus, and you think, well, I wouldn't want that removed from the piazza because it's just
no, absolutely. I mean, I would, once you've destroyed something, once you've taken the statue down, once you've burnt it, once you've got rid of it, you have got no chance to revisit your values, your judgments.
Yeah.
I mean, Chairman Mao thought that everything to do with the Chinese Ancien Regime, except, of course, the fascistic imperialism of the first emperor, whose tomb we now know, was so evil that it had to be destroyed.
Yes.
So Mao and his cultural cleansing cohorts destroyed virtually all, Chinese old things.
Yeah.
I mean, furniture, buildings, paintings, works of art, that which survives in the Forbidden City, that which survives in Taiwan because it was taken away. And likewise here in the British Isles, the zealots of the Church of England, the Protestant fanatics, the Maoists, Protestants, if you like, of the 1530s in particular, much less under Cromwell, but a little bit then too. But basically between, I think, around 1532 and 1560, 99% of all British art was destroyed because it was deemed to be... So I would say, God, when you think what that was, those amazing things that were destroyed.
Yeah, exactly.
I would be very, very careful about destroying something because you don't approve of the values that brought it into being.
Well, also because those values keep changing. They're ever shifting.
Yeah, values do keep changing. I mean, I find it hard. Obviously there would always be certain people with certain roles in history who you say, well, actually, they're not going to get a blue plaque, as it were, or they're not going to win anyone's admiration nowadays. But it seems to me that this sort of habit of passing judgment, people don't think enough about themselves. If you pass judgment on yourself a bit more before you start going to destroy things.
Does it ever affect your appreciation of a work if you just know more about the individual who did it
I can't think of that many examples of great artists artists whom I greatly admire, where I know something terrible about them or where they did something that awful.
Well, I mean, for instance,
Eric Gill is probably the outstanding example.
I've seen activists talk about Picasso as well, in terms of his sexual.
Absolutely, no, I can understand that, and I do, having studied Picasso quite a lot and just interested in him, and I know something about his various relationships, which could be highly, highly destructive and toxic for the women involved. So you look at the images that were produced out of that relationship, and it definitely affects how you think about them.
Yes.
But I would have said that the best response to those feelings, if they're felt strongly enough, is to write a revisionist history of Picasso's relationship, for example, with Dora Maar, including a whole load of her work in which she comments on the relationship, and not let Picasso be the sole voice. It's not to destroy his work, but maybe to write as I say, a revised version of how their relationship was that would make much, much more space in it for the woman's point of view.
I suppose that's the equivalent of, not tearing down a statue of a slaver, putting up a plaque to explain the historical context beside it.
I think that's generally is much better, because then, in my opinion, if you put up a plaque, if you know that this person was involved in the slave trade and there's a history, say in that square in London, why is it there? Then that place could become the opposite of the monument that it once was.
Yes.
So because monuments can be changed into other things, they can become, the monument to the slaver could in effect become a monument to the importance of never letting that happen again.
Yes, a kind of reminder of the worst aspects of history.
Yes, whereas if you smash it and destroy it, I mean, surely that's, for example, why haven't they destroyed the concentration camps?
Yes. Yeah, of course.
You can visit them.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd have the strength to do that, but that is exactly what they're saying. It's in a sense, it's appropriating it in a way that's more creative than simply bringing the bulldozers in.
And you can catch my whole conversation with Andrew Graham Dixon on my podcast, which is called Free Speech Nation, the podcast. That goes live right at the end of this show. That's at 9 p.m. if you're a new viewer. It's coming up to 8:05. You're watching Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. On Thursday, Shona Robertson, an SNP politician serving as the Cabinet Secretary for Social Justice, made the following statement in Parliament. There is no evidence that predatory and abusive men have ever had to pretend to be anything else to carry out abusive and predatory behaviour. Now, look, we all say stupid things from time to time. You know, I used to tell people that skimmed milk came from thinner cows. But I was 7 years old when I said that, and I wasn't an elected representative in Parliament. Shona Robertson was making the comment as part of a debate about reform to the Gender Recognition Act. The SNP's new bill would allow trans people to change the sex marker on their birth certificates without medical evidence of gender dysphoria. Feminist campaigners have warned that this might open up loopholes for men to identify as women and gain access to female-only spaces. It's notable that the bill doesn't use the word sex even once, but the word gender is used 244 times. What nobody here is suggesting is that trans people are predatory. And yet those who oppose the bill are being accused of precisely that kind of prejudice. But that's not how safeguarding works. When adults have to undertake a police disclosure check before teaching, for example, that isn't because anyone is suggesting that people who want to be teachers are inherently abusive. It's because if those checks weren't in place, abusers could exploit the system. And the same, of course, goes for gender self-identification. When convicted rapist Stephen Wood changed his name to Karen White and was moved to a female prison, he went on to sexually assault female inmates. By pointing this out, am I suggesting that this is the typical behaviour of trans people? Not even remotely. I'm suggesting that if you say anyone can change their sex by simply declaring it, abusers will exploit that loophole. As trans writer Debbie Hayton has pointed out, safeguarding weaknesses attract those looking for safeguarding weaknesses, and the SNP's bill introduces them. So let's return to what Shona Robertson actually said. So she said there is no evidence that predatory and abusive men have ever had to pretend to be anything else to carry out abusive and predatory behaviour. Well, apart from Karen White, who we've just seen. Maybe that's true, maybe she's right. Maybe predators have never pretended to be anything else to gain access to their victims. Oh, apart from all the other prisoners who've been moved to women's spaces after claiming to be female, only to commit further offences. But apart from them, and apart from Karen White, it never happens. Except for all those examples of abusers over the years who became scoutmasters or priests or teachers to prey upon the young. Or Jimmy Savile, pretending only to be interested in charity work, for that matter. Or Harvey Glattman, the serial killer who posed as a photographer to lure women with the promise of securing them a modelling career. Or the Hillside Stranglers, Angelo Buono and Kenneth Bianchi, who pretended to be undercover police officers to entrap their victims. Or the killer of Sarah Everard, of course, who pretended to be arresting her for breaching COVID restrictions. Or any other killer or abuser who posed as someone else, which, let's face it, is most of them. So yes, apart from the thousands and thousands of times that abusive men have pretended to be something they're not, abusive men have literally never pretended to be something they're not. Thanks, Shona Robertson. You've really hit the nail on the head with that one. Isn't it about time we had a sensible discussion about this? I mean, there are certainly people out there who have some deeply ingrained prejudices against trans people, and we are right to be wary of such people. But women who are concerned about the impact of their safety, which could come about because of gender self-identification, aren't among them. They're not being hateful or transphobic. They're raising important points that merit consideration. But while activists and Stonewall and the SNP are just childishly throwing around accusations of hate and bigotry whenever someone asks a question, this will continue to be the most toxic debate in the current culture wars, and ultimately, it will be women who lose out. Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. We're going to get some more questions from the audience, because I feel we haven't involved you enough. The first is from James. James, not Jane. James. There you are.
Hiya. I was just wondering, does the panel think Keir Starmer can make Britain great again?
That's a hilarious question. Can Keir Starmer make Britain great again? OK, so this is after the Labour leader addressed party activists saying SNP and the Tories are stuck on pause and only Labour will create a Britain that Scottish people are not only part of, but proud of. Nick, have you got any thoughts on that?
If you can pull that off, that'll be a miracle. I mean, yeah, I've got thoughts. I mean, this is about, you know, Scottish independence and so on. And well, for a start, I'm Northern, so I haven't even recognised the South as part of my country yet. But he made the point that we're fighting the same referendum over and over again, and that's the problem both with Scotland and with, obviously, Brexit. No one seems to accept the result of a referendum, which does make things a bit tiresome. Yes. So, yeah, I respect... If Scotland want to leave, I totally respect that. The problem is they voted to leave, and it hasn't done
Nick,
anything.
that was a once-in-a-lifetime referendum.
They voted to stay, sorry.
The once-in-a-lifetime referendum, which they're going to have again next year.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, that's... I mean, this is... Do you think Keir Keir Starmer's the man? You're a Labour supporter, right, Scott?
Yeah, it's all we have left. I mean, I don't want Scotland to leave. I would really miss them on the map, and I love all that oil which they had until they deep fried everything. But I think the union itself is in danger of, well, it is devolving anyway. I mean, the Welsh are devolving. I mean, choice or no choice, we all know they have been for a long time. And I feel like, as an American, you know, the U.S. is too large, and I would love it to break up. I think it'd be easier to govern. And maybe Scotland should go on their own. I mean, they can't afford it. The EU doesn't want them. They're too poor. But maybe at some point, if they all get a job and pay their taxes, at some point, maybe Brussels will say yes, and then they can just leave.
It would be interesting if you did devolve the American. I mean, because you look at the maps of the way people vote, and everyone on the coastlines.
Where people read. They vote appropriately. It's the people inland that vote, you know, maybe they're dehydrated and they vote for the most racist candidate they can get their claws on. I really love Britain. I think it's less savage in every way, especially the way people deal with one another. And I think the only way to really deal with this is to have another referendum, as ridiculous as it is.
Yes,
you know?
but I'm just not convinced of Starmer. I mean, I just don't think Starmer, who was one of the sort of major architects of the second referendum policy that completely lost Labour any chance of getting anywhere. I just don't see how he's the one to rebuild the red wall.
He's got the charm of a refrigerator. He really. I mean, I don't like Boris Johnson. I mean, I like his initials, but I'm not a big fan of his. And I don't know who to like, except that I admire Boris Johnson because he always looks like he knows what he's doing. You know, he does in a way, and he goes jogging at 5 a.m. in tiny shorts.
But Nick, I mean, people think of you as on the right-ish, or would you vote Tory? Would you?
Do you know, I don't even vote Tory. People think of me on the. Obviously, I just vote for the very far-right parties that are much niche. I'm joking, guys. I vote Christian. The point is, I haven't voted Tory, but the reason I like Boris, is the wrong word, but simply because he got us out of the restrictions. Even if he was only because he was afraid of his backbench. So that's why I backed. Well, I don't exactly back Boris, but I prefer Boris because with Starmer we would be locked away forever in his weird lockdown.
Well, people forget that about Labour, is that when they were sort of criticising the Tories about all this, they had wanted even more restrictions. Yeah. You know, so I mean,
that was their only ever criticism was why don't you do more lockdown harder? Exactly. So yes, I don't want Starmer.
Well, you could vote Green. Brighton's a nice town. You could.
It is nice.
Although I thought about voting
Green now anyway, aren't they?
Yeah. If you vote Green, just rip up your ballot and flush it down the toilet. It's the same thing. Right?
Well, let's not upset all the Green voters out there because they're both watching, I think. Let's get another question now from Rachel. Rachel, hello.
Hi. How much would you pay to keep your house warm?
How much would you pay to keep your house warm? Well, this, of course, is in reference to the spiralling energy prices. It's getting a bit out of control. One of Scottish Power's deals means that an average household would spend £3,500 a year on gas and electricity. The energy price cap will increase by 54% next month, but more price rises are expected later this year. National Energy Action says the number of households in fuel poverty could double in a year. I mean, this is the thing, Nick. I think, people don't realise, and certainly I think people in the government don't realise the extent of damage that this will do to normal people's lives. People who can't afford this extra hike.
Me. You're looking at me. Yeah,
exactly. I was looking. That's why I've come to you first.
Yes, I see that.
Scott can afford it.
Yeah, and apparently E.ON is the only one that has a slightly better deal in the article I read, so I should probably open some of those letters they send me. But the point is, E.ON has a slightly better deal. But I am worried about the energy prices, although maybe a bit less worried because I live on my own and I'm one of those people that doesn't turn the heating on until I actually see stalactites in the room. You know what I mean? I try and get to like December as like a challenge. It's a northern thing. You wouldn't get it, guys. But I'm very concerned about it. It's going to get astronomical very soon.
Do you think, Scott, that the government's out of touch on this? Do they have to do more?
Well, they have to improve their relationship with Russia because they've got all the oil. So until...
The oil and the gas.
If it wasn't for these green policies, we could make our own.
We could, yeah. You know, I'm lucky to be in a relationship, unlike Nick. And I have someone who loves me, so he keeps me warm at night, and that's the one advantage of marriage. So thank you, heterosexuals, for that one advantage. But also, I think, it's odd to me that they've removed the cap or
they're increasing the cap.
Especially when inflation's gone up 30% in the last 3 years. I don't know how people can afford to do anything. Without my family's money, I'd be living like
Nick Dixon.
Yeah,
that would be bad.
I do fine. This is propaganda.
Well, let's get another question now. So this is from Aidan. Aidan, where's Aidan? Hello, Aidan.
Hi. We've heard of people being cancelled for what they did say, but is it right that they get cancelled for what they didn't say?
So this alludes to something I mentioned earlier, which is Valery Gergiev, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, Valery Gergiev, who's the star Russian maestro and prominent supporter of President Putin. He was removed from his post as chief conductor of the Munich Philharmonic after he refused to denounce the invasion of Ukraine. And I was talking to Tom Slater from Spiked about this earlier, insofar as there's this expectation that artists and creatives have to have a particular political slant, otherwise they should lose their job. I mean, Scott, do you think this is fair?
Well, the problem is that the condition right now is people expect him to be a certain way. He's an artist, and like you said, most artists from Russia seem to have a certain political view about their government. I don't like this. I think they should just leave him alone. I don't think his political opinions have anything to do with his work, obviously. Mm-hmm. And I don't like editing people. And for all we know, he has to say what he says.
Yeah.
We don't know what condition his family is back in Russia. We don't know if he's been threatened. We don't know if he's been accused of things. So I just think they should just
But even if he supported Putin, even if that was incontrovertible, that's definitely the case. You know, some artists, some creatives have opinions that I find abhorrent, but
Seriously.
I still love their work.
You don't want to know what Barbara Streisand does. I read all the interviews. She's got a museum to herself below her house. She's a freak, but she's Barbara Streisand, so...
She's got a museum about herself.
She does. There's
in
been a
her
whole,
own house.
Yes, there's a museum about her in the cellar of her house. I know about it. I've almost made it there. Oh, that's my dream.
One day.
Yeah, but you know, political viewpoints of people, you don't want to know. The more you know about celebrities, the less you're going to like them, obviously.
What do you think, Nick?
Well, I have a brilliantly nuanced view, as always. I should probably say it and let you decide. But the point is, this... Now, if it's one thing... Now, he's going to be close friends with Putin, right? Which, if they wanted to sack him because of that, maybe that's up to them. That's another discussion. What particularly bothered me was they want him to say something publicly. It's like, you have to say this or we'll fire you. Yeah. It's the kind of power... It's the bullying power game of that. Why does he have to just say the current thing that we... You know, even if you agree with it, and to me, if he is friends with Putin, right, can he really condemn him publicly? Like, think about it. If like Andrew, like you've done a lot for me. If you suddenly decided to invade a country,
I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, I wouldn't be able to condemn you. It would be wrong because it would be wrong for my loyalty to you. So what I don't like is this sort of weird bullying of, even if Putin's doing horrible stuff, is saying you must denounce your friend or we'll sack you.
Well, it's also that expectation of, you know, I had a friend during you remember the summer of 2020 when the Black Lives Matter movement was really kicking off and exploding across the world. And a friend of mine who's an actor was contacted by her agent saying, you haven't posted support to Black Lives Matter on your Twitter feed. Right. You better do it now or you're not going to get cast anymore in anything. Yeah. I mean, that was explicitly said, right?
That's horrendous. You could say this is different because, of course, he has invaded a country and
Sure. But I'm making a point about the principle of coerced speech, of saying, she was completely silent.
Speech
she hadn't said anything.
You know, I had a casting director who's also a stand-up comic see me at one of your shows, actually, in East London, a live comedy show, and he tried to cast me as a right-wing gay. He said, I can't find any. You're the only one I know. We need a right-wing gay. Oh, he's frothing. And I said, what about my act or me makes you think I'm right-wing? He said, well, I've heard your jokes. They're clearly right-wing. I said, but what
makes you... they were funny?
Well, yeah. There are punchlines. How dare you? And you know, I know that I've been excluded from clubs and from stuff on the road because they think that I'm not a well-behaving gay, that I'm acting out of my little bubble of where I should be.
That's it, isn't it? Because, I mean, I wouldn't watch your act and assume you were right-wing. What a strange...
Very odd, you know. And in a way, that's the same old homophobia in action. But like with this guy from Munich, I think you're right, telling him what to say or do. It's like old-style Hollywood when they made actors and performers appear in a certain way, whether they were or not.
Yeah, it's dodgy, that's for sure. Well, look, we've got time for just one more question before our break. This is from Heather. Heather, hello.
Hi. Do you feel billionaire Mohammed bin Salman's pain?
Oh, I know who you're talking about. This is the Saudi Crown Prince. Now, this was an interesting story this week because the Saudi Crown Prince said that when he was accused of being responsible for journalist Jamal Khashoggi's murder, and you remember that horrible murder, the man was dismembered, it was absolutely horrendous. But the Crown Prince has said that being accused of being responsible hurt his feelings. This is in his first interview with non-Saudi press for more than 2 years. Mohammed bin Salman said it was obvious he had not ordered the writer and broadcaster's killing because the journalist was simply not important enough to kill. So this was so he said, this was his defence. He was saying, look, if I was going to draw up a list of the people we would kill, he'd be way down. He said, it's like, this is not the way you respond to this.
He said he wouldn't even be in the top 1,000. I mean, it's like, guys...
Which suggests to me he's got a top 1,000.
Right, exactly. It's a great defence anyway. Guys, I'd kill thousands of people before him, yeah.
I mean, I just think
The genius of his defence was that he's appealing to the West's obsession with feelings.
Yeah.
Because can we really criticise? It's like, oh, guys, my feelings were hurt. Then he's assuming the whole West will go, oh, well, that's different then.
Yes.
But the part that worries me is that Khashoggi criticised him. If his feelings are that frail, that kind of suggests that he might have done something to him. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he denies it, but,
he denies it,
but various human rights organisations have explicitly said that he was responsible.
Where are you on the list? Did that hurt your feelings that you're not on the list?
Exactly. Why am I not on the list?
Yeah.
997.
Yeah, I just think about all of this stuff, like, whether or not what he was directly responsible or whatever, right? His feelings aren't the issue here. It's the feelings of the family of the poor guy who was he's the victim. So people playing the victim. Also, I'm sorry, the Saudi regime playing the victim, given their human rights violations. I mean, give it a break. He even sort of said, he made this point about due process, sort of saying, it's innocent till proven guilty. I'm like, yeah. So start applying that in your own country, right? And stop arresting people who try and challenge it. Honestly.
The Saudi government has said they'd like to step in and try to kind of alleviate this problem that's going on between Russia and the West. They think they can do it.
Do they?
They do, and they've been a very peaceful country externally for quite a long time, and they don't rely obviously on Russia for gas or oil, so they really don't have anything at stake, really.
Well, there's that, but they're peaceful, except if you're a woman or if you're gay, or and you have to deal with
or anything.
It's not good. But there's a lot of people claiming the victim worldwide. Who was saying that Russia is being cancelled at the moment? Someone tried to use that rhetoric as well.
Thinking I should move to Saudi Arabia. It sounds perfect for straight people.
Oh, yes, perfect. Exactly. You should go there.
Although Christians are probably not the best thing.
No, I don't think Christians go down well either.
I'm rethinking it.
Yeah, don't do anything rash, Nick, until you've done a little bit of research first. Anyway, after the break on Free Speech Nation, is woke over? I'm going to discuss this with the author and politician Peter Whittle. See you in a couple of minutes.
Definitely not.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before. It's basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Before 2014, nobody really used the phrase woke. It was once a rallying cry to be alert to racism, but wokeness has become the political term of the decade and used by culture warriors to either denigrate what we sometimes call political correctness. And now with COVID-19 fading, some argue that wokeness is the fastest spreading virus, while others argue it's just a figment of right-wing imaginations. But on the day that Vladimir Putin initiated his invasion of Ukraine, the front page of the Daily Mail led with a story about a leaked document from MI5 and MI6 urging spies to acknowledge their white privilege and to declare their pronouns. This Richard Moore, head of MI6, now declares his own pronouns in his Twitter bio. So if people in authority are capitulating to this movement, do we have to accept that maybe it's here to stay? To discuss this, I'm joined by Peter Whittle, everyone.
Thank you.
So,
lovely to be here.
Thanks for coming in. Now, Peter, I'm fascinated by this because whenever we always talk about institutional capture and the way in which this movement, whatever we want to call it, the woke movement, the critical social justice movement, it clearly has managed to capture major institutions such as the military, such as the intelligence agencies, such as the media, such as cultural and artistic and educational institutions.
Everything, basically.
Everything. So surely the battle's lost, isn't it?
I don't think the battle's ever lost, Andrew, but I think it's going to be an uphill task. I mean, if you remember the beginning of the pandemic, I think we discussed it even. People were saying, well, that's it for woke. Everyone's going to get serious now. Basically, the days of that kind of frippery self-indulgence are over. And of course, not only did it not go, it actually intensified, I think, to a degree. And we had also, which is all part of it, we had that extraordinary cultural attack that happened around the time of the statues coming down and all of that, a huge, right through all of our institutions, Decolonization, all of that. I hope, optimistically, that this time it will be different, because what we have seen is an extraordinary coming together of the West structurally, in many ways. But I think that now is the time to really look at why we are considered by our enemies to be weak, and to be decadent, and to be self-indulgent, and all of those things, and basically try and get our house in order. And I think that, if we don't do it now, then I'm just rather worried that it will never happen.
Yes, but, you say that, but then, as you said just then, when the coronavirus hits, when you've got an actual pandemic, people are really suffering, and all of a sudden it feels silly to complain about someone using different pronouns for you, or that kind of thing. And all those sort of strange articles in the New York Times, like, can my children be friends with white people? And all this strange stuff. At that time, it felt like, well, that's going to go away because, like you say, it just seems frivolous compared to actual problems of a pandemic. But it didn't go away, got a whole lot worse. So why would this be any different? Why would this be different, this moment in history now?
I think that I don't want to overstate things simply because things change very quickly. But I think that what we've seen and how people have been inspired by Zelensky, for example, which is pure, unadulterated patriotism and fighting for your country, and basically we're not going to go down without a fight. All of that. That I think has inspired people, and sort of thinking, well, actually, why can't we be a little bit more like that? But I think that I'd say that yes, it didn't go away during the pandemic, but that somehow or other we've got to root this out. It's not just silly stuff about. It's not just like bathrooms being what is it called, gender
neutral,
and all of that. That's the kind of the silly side. It makes lots of nice stories. I suppose what worries me more is that the full-on attack on our history, going through all institutions, all our schools, that is seriously weakening us in the West.
I think this is a really interesting point, because a lot of people, when they think of these stories, and I cover them in this show almost to take the mick a bit, stories about changing the name of the gypsy moth to the spongy moth, and we can have a laugh about that, or the painting everything in the rainbow colours in that gaudy thing. And we can have a laugh about it, but it actually signals something a bit more sinister than that.
Oh, absolutely. And also, you mentioned the MI6 chief. During, I think it was last week, he tweeted out saying, I'm going to continue to tweet about LGBT rights, because that's the thing that marks us out primarily from Russia, for example. Well, first of all, that's not true, actually. But secondly, you sort of think, this is embarrassing. This is the head of MI6 at this time. We need to be taken seriously as a country. And he is doing this kind of thing, this trivia.
I find it odd. I think Russia has been terrible on gay rights, as it happens, right? And I think that's a legitimate point. But by suggesting that we still have an issue, we have equal rights for LGBT people. We have that, so it's secured. So what is that all about? In other words, it's about priorities, right?
Well, it's about priorities, but I would also say that underlying a lot of this sort of stuff that we've been going on for a few years now. I would say is this sort of an attempt to sort of undermine our culture, undermine our confidence in ourselves, even right down now with the transgender thing. undermine our very sense of ourselves, the language too, how we express ourselves.
The idea of objective truth.
Yes, in every way, but I think it's always being directed at the West, and particularly the Anglospheric West.
Well, talk me through that a little bit more. Underpinning this movement, this critical social justice movement, seems to be a sense in which the West was built on bigotry. The West was built on the suppression of minority groups to the advantage of heterosexual white males, which strikes me as now, there have been very powerful heterosexual white males in history, but they weren't exerting their power in order to preserve their group identity. It seems like a very reductive, almost childish lens through which to view history.
Well, this is the point. It is very childish. I mean, our culture has become very infantilized. I mean, it is, and basically every issue, or many issues now for these people, is seen through how does this make me look?
Yeah.
How do I feature in this? What should my reaction be? And you just think this is how a child behaves.
The narcissistic element of it.
Very narcissistic. I mean, I quoted something. It was a very good article by Matthew Said, I think it was, in the Sunday Times today, and there was this great statistic in it. He was quoting from somebody else, actually. Apparently, students were asked, do they agree with the statement, I am a very important person? In 1950, they were asked this, and about 12% said, yes, they did.
12%?
12.
OK.
1990, 80%.
What's causing that, then?
Well, I think it's I mean, how long have you got, Andrew? But I'd say it's like a kind of dual action in a way. It's, on the one hand, I'd say it's a kind of rampant sort of consumerism, where the person is seen just as someone who takes, has to be satisfied, like a child. But then also, I think it comes very strongly from the left, undermining all those institutions which put us in a context.
Yes.
So whether it's a nation, whether it's a family, whether it's, our locality, all of these things are somehow, they have been chipped away at. Our sense of nationhood, our patriotism, all of those things have been discredited, or rather they're trying to discredit them. So it comes down now solidly to the person, the individual, And if there's one thing we could take out of this whole crisis, for me, it would be great to start talking about we again as opposed to I.
Yes, I understand. I mean, for me, it would concern me less if this were just the activists online making their noise, saying we need to decolonise all the curricula, tear down the statues, whatever. What bothers me is the figures of authority who then say, yes, OK, we'll go along with that. You're making enough noise. Even though you don't represent the majority of people, we're scared of you, so we'll do what you say. When Sheffield University put out that video saying that the only reason we study Chaucer and Shakespeare is because they were white men. Yeah. And, that's not just some idiot online, that's a university who are clearly not in a position to teach Chaucer and Shakespeare. If that's what they think, they're not qualified to do so. So is this a legitimation crisis? Is this a crisis of the fact that those in authority have gone along with it? That's the problem.
Well, I think they've gone along. I think there are some who go along with it because they think it's the thing to do, and they're under social pressure. But I also think that there has been, our institutions generally have been hollowed out.
Right.
And that's universities, increasingly with schools. This is going to become a very big thing, I think, Andrew, what kids are being taught in schools. Our museums, all of these, they don't do anymore what they're meant to do. They have become agents, they say, of social change, which is not what they're meant to be. But the overall effect, in terms of what we've been talking about, is to demoralise. It demoralises us. We feel that we are bad, that we're made to feel guilty, all of these things. None of that really adds up to a nation which is going to be confident, or a culture which is going to think that it's a wonderful culture. And I think ours is a wonderful culture. I think it's a wonderful civilization.
But it puts me off from going to museums and things, because if I'm going to an exhibition, I know I'm going to be lectured by the various placards that are going to be put up about how evil the country is and how evil the artist is. I mean, the Hogarth exhibition had a portrait of him in a chair, and the note said something like, the chair would have been built from timber which was produced by slavery. So therefore, which again, really just a stupid thing to write. And, we can make fun of it. Yeah. But again, it points to something bigger, a kind of malaise.
It is an absolute malaise, which has come to, I think it's been gestating for a long time. I tend to think there has been what they call a long march through the institutions. I do think that. And that's been going on. It's not a conspiracy. It's nothing like that. People didn't sit down in a room at one point maybe and say, oh, we'll do this and that. I think that what's happened is there's been a slow march through the institutions. And what we saw in 2020 was things reached a real peak. it was the speed with which everything happened.
Well, it just exploded in that summer, didn't it? And everything went, absolutely massive. So how do we roll back? Because I know, speaking to academics now, most of them who have an alternative viewpoint will just keep it to themselves. They're not going to get promoted if they want to. I've had people contact me about the various decolonising groups, about the toppling of certain statues or the removal of certain statues, and they're just too afraid to say anything.
Yes, I think that people. It's very easy to say this. But people have got to try and have courage. I do think more people in the academic sphere, for example, there is more courage being shown.
Yes.
But I think ultimately it's got to be practical things. I think that if, for example, you are in charge of a museum and you want to decolonise its collection, you should lose your public money, I'm afraid.
Oh, really? You go that far?
And I think we've got to go further than that. I think the time has come where we've really got to start building our own institutions. I mean, America's got two famous colleges. One is called Hillsdale. I think there's one in Austin.
There's one in Austin, yeah.
Yes.
There's Ralston College in Savannah as well, which is coming up.
Right.
So.
We've got to start. It's harder in this country. We have less money. We have less people with money willing to put their money where their mouth is. But nevertheless, that's what we've got to start thinking of. We've actually got to build alternatives, because this is so embedded that, frankly, it's unreformable.
So you think it's too late?
No, not too late. I hope I'm showing possibly what we could do. It's just that as things stand at the moment, it simply cannot go on. So public money should be taken away if you're not doing the job you're meant to be doing, and we've got to build our own institutions.
OK, a lot to think about there. Peter, thank you so much for joining me today. Still to come on Free Speech Nation, we're going to be taking a look at the stories that have created a storm on social media this week, and I'm going to be giving my verdict on your unfiltered dilemmas with the help of my beautiful panel. We will be back in a couple of minutes.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate.
From all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel.
Right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon
and Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation with me, Andrew Doyle. Now, every time at this part of the show, we will dedicate it to the murky world of social media. Why not? All the videos that have been causing a stir, all the stories that have been going viral. And we start with this strange story of the TV costume designer, the £1.5 million house, and the creepy mannequin. So Rosie and Christopher Taylor-Davis say they've been forced to live in darkness with the curtains drawn after their neighbour Simon Cook installed a window which faces directly into their bedroom. And the couple have accused Cook of putting in place a mannequin dummy that stares at them. But they lost their privacy battle at the at the High Court. Do we have a picture of the mannequin? Oh, well, there we are. I would say that is quite intimidating. Now, I thought there were rules about where you could put windows and there was sort of planning permission that you had to get. I know that someone in my family had a window up, but they had to have stained glass in the window in order to prevent looking over. Is this... And that's creepy as hell, right?
Yeah, it reminds me of a weird situation I've got, because where I moved into this building, I found out my ex-girlfriend lives across the courtyard bit, down in a different flat, and apparently I'm not allowed to use the binoculars. Anyway, the point is... some sort of crime. No, but that reminded me... Yeah, I always think it's weird that you can see these people say, yeah, this is bizarre. Why have they put the mannequin there?
Well, I mean, it's clear. I think they put the mannequin there as a kind of gesture and almost like, you know, we'll do what we want. And, you know, what do you think?
I love watching people. The back of our building faces another building, and there's a woman on the ground floor, and she used to be a sex care worker, and now she's got a husband, and she's had 3 kids by him. We watch all the kids grow up. We watch her sell drugs out of her kitchen window. It's
so
just
you know
delicious.
everything about these people.
And my husband's worse. He watches and hears everyone. It's great.
It's like a form of entertainment.
It is. I'm not a big fan of television, except your show.
Of course.
And but I do like watching human behavior, and I love the idea of being watched myself. I'd love to be stalked, and no one's ever cared enough to...
Well, maybe someone in the audience tonight will make Scott's dream come true.
I've got a bag of breadcrumbs. Follow me home.
Scott, is it the same if it's an inanimate object staring at you?
No, it's not.
It's a start, baby steps. Right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just think that image of that mannequin, I would have a problem with that. That would freak me out. Particularly if I woke up and that's the first thing I saw. I think they should get rid of it.
It's horrible, but it's technically probably not a crime, is it?
It's not a crime at all. How could it be?
A mannequin placed near a window.
No. Well, that's how they're getting away with it, you see. That's the point.
I see. I get it now.
Strange story, that is. Anyway, next up, we've got a story from the United States where Joe Biden has not had the best of weeks. He got Ukraine mixed up with Iran in his State of the Union address. So at least not on an important occasion. And he also got into a bit of trouble in Pittsburgh, according to a local TV station. Take a look at this.
A 71-year-old man is accused of inappropriately touching a 12-year-old girl at the Walmart in West Mifflin Sunday afternoon.
Well, they corrected it very quickly, but the reaction from the male presenter... Let's have another look at his reaction here. Let's have a look. And there we go. So she's talking about this sex offender.
Yeah.
And his image come out. Oh, dear.
Oh, God.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's live TV, right? Things go wrong with live TV, and you know, that can happen all the time.
And he can't be charged with a crime. He's the president, so, you know...
it's fine.
Yeah, whatever.
It's fine. But would he... I mean, he could sue, potentially, no, because they took it down really, really quickly.
Yeah.
But that is unfortunate about Biden using the wrong country.
Yeah.
You know, that is...
Which time? Because he said that Iranians instead of Ukrainians. Then there's that clip around of him saying Putin has invaded Russia. Have you not seen that one?
Yeah.
This is unbelievable.
Well, metaphorically, he has.
Yeah.
Oh, I see what you mean.
As far as Putin's concerned, it is Russia. I mean...
well, there's that.
You know, Biden, he just looks a bit dead behind the eyes. He just doesn't seem like... He looks like he's filled with sawdust and just pushed on a balcony every 12 months and said...
He looks like a mannequin. He looks like that mannequin.
He's the mannequin in the window. He is.
Just looking at Trump.
I mean, isn't it just that, you know, he's an older gentleman and, you know, he's obviously...
I think he's been through a lot, and he seems traumatized by just about every experience. And sometimes when I watch him talk, he looks a bit drunk. And he might not be, but maybe it's the medication, I don't know, or his dentures, or maybe he just hasn't had enough sleep.
Yep.
Well, or maybe he just needs to be replaced. God, can they find someone even half his age to do the job?
Well, you heard it here first. He might not be drunk. That's quite important to know. Let's just go to another clip now. This is a clip from an Indian TV station. This is a classic case of mistaken identity. This is Rahul Shivshankar, who's a presenter for Indian news channel Times Now, berated a Ukrainian journalist but got his name wrong. It's fair to say Daniel McAdams, who's a commentator on US foreign policy, wasn't best pleased. Let's check this out.
The East, and don't sit here and lecture us. Don't sit here and lecture us, Mr. McAdams. We shut him down.
I'm not talking. It's the other guy who's talking. I haven't been able to say a word.
Yeah, absolutely. The man has gone completely ballistic. And if he feels so strongly, he should go and fight alongside Ukrainians who are being killed.
I have not, dear host, I have not said a word yet. I don't know why you're yelling at me.
I'm not yelling at you. I'm talking about Mr. McAdams. I'm talking about Mr. McAdams.
I am Mr. McAdams.
Oh.
I am Mr. McAdams, and I haven't said a word, so stop yelling at me.
Okay, sorry, I got that confused. I got that
You're
confused.
a guy who's going nuts, okay? Not me.
Yes, I got that. I got that. That's Bowden Nahallo, the chief editor of Kyiv Post. Sorry, Mr. McAdams. Sorry.
Cut
Thank
off
you.
his microphone.
I mean, he didn't handle it that well. I mean, but it must be pretty bad. You know, you come on a show, you're waiting to speak, and then someone's just yelling at you and just having a go. It's absolutely terrifying. Maybe I should try that.
Well, I was just wondering if all the guests look the same to you sometimes. You just feel like railing against everyone.
Maybe I should.
Yeah.
Maybe I should just go all-out aggressive style. How dare you, Scott Kapoor? How dare you sit there and say whatever it is you haven't yet said?
How dare you speak favorably of Boris Johnson and Tiny Short Shorts?
You would be shouting Nick Dixon at him.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Nick Dixon.
Yeah,
I would.
You missed it there because you didn't hear it, but it goes on for about a minute. He's shouting at Mr. McAdams. He goes, I am Mr. McAdams. And he goes, oh, that's the best bit of the whole thing.
But yeah, I get it though, because when you're interviewing people, you're interviewing lots of different people. You haven't seen them before, you haven't met them before. You get the name wrong, but it's the persistence with which he continued to sort of shout. It just doesn't seem that professional to me.
But it was a great moment. I'm glad it happened.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, just for sheer comedy value, it's a good thing that happened. I'm glad it's out there in the world, but nevertheless, you know.
It doesn't seem diplomatic to me, and it's weird. I think when you start screaming at someone, you're not going to get the best out of them, really, as a guest.
I think that's right, but that's a sort of message we could all learn just in terms of politics generally, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, Ruby Wax told me years ago that if you interview someone, be nice to them. Otherwise, they're not going to tell you anything.
It seems like a basic thing.
Yeah, but when she interviewed Imelda Marcos, she did look up her skirt.
Did she?
She did.
Well, you know, maybe she could take some of her own advice.
I'm sure the little Imelda is up there somewhere. And she said that really worked because it brought up the inner child of Imelda Marcos.
I saw Ruby Wax interviewing Madonna and she started going through her stuff when she was out of the room. And Madonna caught her and was furious about it. So maybe that's not the way.
You've got to be careful with people. I mean, in a way, I think some people like to be told what to do and like to be ordered around a little bit. But most people just want to be handled like their guests.
No, they do. And I'm very polite to everyone. I haven't shouted at anyone yet.
I struggle with all that because all your references are so gay.
Yeah.
And I didn't know any of them.
I wish you had biscuits and heat in this room, though. I'd be in a better
Your rider
mood.
is ridiculously
That's
specific.
all I want is organic biscuits and a bit of heat. That's all I asked for.
Well, you know, there isn't a Waitrose around here. We can't just get the stuff you need. Anyway, look, let's go to another video. This is a video from Liverpool against West Ham. Someone's told me that they're football teams, apparently. And this was yesterday when is it Zuma, Nick?
Yeah.
Kurt Zuma, who is... I do know about him because he was featured in that infamous cat-kicking video. And he was playing in this. And Liverpool fans decided to fly a banner saying Cats' Lives Matter over the stadium. Let's have a look. I think that's very sweet.
Oh.
And they do. I mean, cats' lives do matter. And what a great way to deal with that, I think. I mean, look, that video really upset me. I do think, and there were all sorts of excuses like, well, he didn't kick it that hard. It was just a bit playful. I mean, you're a football fan, Nick. Defend your people here.
You want me to defend Zuma, really?
Well, I mean, why not?
Well, the one thing I will say is that some good has come out of it because that is very funny, flying that cat's like that. Imagine the effort you've got to go to fly a plane just to insult someone. It's like me going over the plane, free speech nation is rubbish. Can you imagine if I did that?
If you do that, you're not coming back on. I'm just going to put that out there now.
All right.
It would be very funny and we'd use the clip, but there's no way you're coming back on with that. I mean, no. What do you think about this?
Well, I always wonder if you kicked a dog, if people would care as much, because people kick dogs all the time. You can kill a dog, you don't get charged with any crime.
You should.
No, but you don't, because dogs don't have any souls. So if you then, that's why I lose the audience.
You lost the audience.
Oh, that's a real boundary crosser. But if you kick a cat, people get all nervous and anxious because
I think kicking any animal. Go on, Nick.
I'm against kicking all animals. I love dogs. The part that bothered me particularly was he later came out with a statement saying it was an isolated incident, but it was a montage, bro. Like there was like 4 or 5.
It cannot, by definition, be an isolated. Right. You can't have an isolated montage.
Right.
Exactly.
But you are aware, right, that cats will eat your eyes. You do know that dogs will leave you alone, but cats, if you fall asleep for too long, they will eat your face.
You know what, Scott? I'm going to counter that, right? Because I think you and I are best placed to discuss this because we're clearly zoologists. But I would tell you, right, if people died, the dogs will eat the dead body.
But if you fall asleep on the lounger, the cat will jump up and eat your pupils. They will.
Scott is right about this.
No, he's not right about anything.
He's right in this sense. Cats would kill you if they were big enough.
They would.
Totally. It's only because they're all small and they're not like their ancestors.
But that's the same with any creature.
No, dogs wouldn't kill you.
An earwig would kill you if it was the size of us.
Dogs.
They're wiping out the bird population, by the way. We're losing so many birds because cats are bored and hungry. They keep sweeping it. They're dangerous little creatures. They're brutal, little, dangerous wild cats.
No, I adore cats. I think they want to... I mean, I understand what you're saying because they're very selfish. They don't really care about you. I get that. But they are cute and they're affectionate.
No, they would kill you if they could.
Oh, this is... This is
They're
ridiculous.
they're vermin-carrying little... They're basically rats with longer tails is what they are. They're quite brutal.
So what are you suggesting? Get a chinchilla or something like that?
Kick those little things.
No.
Kick harder kick.
Right, I absolutely do not endorse this, and I want to just say we do not endorse kicking any form of animal life on this channel. Anyway, thank you, Scott. Finally, we've got a tweet here. Now, this was from one of Saturday Night Live's writers, and this tweet has really gone viral. Got a lot of likes, which has made me a bit nervous, right? Yeah. This is Matthew Golden. He said yesterday, at this point, a visible Harry Potter tattoo should be met with the same degree of revulsion as a swastika. 25,000 likes. There we go. That's just outright bigotry. And I was looking at his time and I was thinking, is he trying to be funny? It doesn't look like it.
Yeah, he is a writer for SNL, but if you look through his timeline, it's all a bit weird. Sorry to diss this particular guy, but the tweets are a bit weird. What bothered me about that tweet, if he's saying because adults shouldn't be reading Harry Potter books, then I'm absolutely on board. But he's clearly not saying. He's clearly, because Rowling is now considered evil, he's saying it's as bad as a swastika. So it's completely insane.
This insanity around J.K. Rowling, I cannot get out. Like this idea that because she believes that there are biological differences between men and women, and because she believes, as a survivor of domestic abuse, that actually it's quite important to secure women's only spaces in certain circumstances. She's suddenly Goebbels.
Well, I think that tweet proves what we all know, that SNL hasn't been funny for a long time. But also, I think, a Harry Potter tattoo all it says to me is that I never want to get laid. Well. And I feel bad that using the whole swastika thing is such a reactionary kind of a bomb.
Although actually,
it really is.
Now, I sort of agree with your joke, it was funny, but now couldn't having a Harry Potter tattoo be a kind of cool, edgy thing that could actually...
Do you have one, Nick? Is that what you're telling us?
Well, I'm considering it. I mean, amongst these kind of people, it would be kind of cool to support... I stand with J.K. Rowling and then a picture of Harry or something.
You're going to get, like, Hagrid on your left shoulder.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but yes.
Yeah.
Because I read adult books.
All right. No, well, Robbie Coltrane, then, on your left shoulder. I think that would be quite
I'd like a long wand on my inner thigh, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not going to read too much into that statement, but I do think it's gone to the point where there is this sort of basic thing where people on the internet just go to Nazis straight away, or the Godwin's Law.
They're doing better now than ever before. The Nazis can sell out a room. People will line up around the block to hear or talk about a Nazi. They're obsessed with it. We all love Hugo Boss, but I don't know why people are so determined to throw that word around. It's so dangerous and racist and so offensive, by the way, if you are a survivor of the last devastating war or your family.
Of course it is, because it totally demeans it.
It's so debilitating.
I love that people here, I don't think, understood that Hugo Boss did, in fact, design the Nazi uniform.
He did.
So if you didn't know...
Those knee-high boots are fantastic. Yeah. I mean, evil, but...
Or they understood but just didn't think it was funny.
No, that was either way. Trust you, Nick, to come in there and undermine the other panellists. Now, we have still got time, hopefully, because I want to talk through your unfiltered dilemmas, which is what we do at the end of every episode of Free Speech Nation, because it's very important to me, because I consider myself not just a broadcaster, but also a healer. And I think that's what this moment of the show is about. So the first one is from Adrian. So Adrian says this. Adrian says, my girlfriend found my second phone while I was in the shower, and it has a lot of girls' numbers on it. When she asked me about it, I admitted I'd cheated. Should I just have said no comment instead? Well, if you know that Shaggy song, it wasn't me. Just like straight away, like why would you do that? But also, why have a second phone? Come on, Nick.
Second phone is the red flag in that sense.
Totally
unless you're a drug dealer, in which case it's fine. You have to. you have to have a burner. Chuck it. But second phone. My girlfriend found my second phone. I mean, who are you? Do you work for the Ministry of Defence?
Well,
what is this? I mean,
this is a common thing. I've seen Breaking Bad. Oh no, that's drug dealing.
Do you know what? I would have gone with, it's about Ukraine. I need a second phone because I'm involved in, like, the spy networks or something.
That would have worked.
Because at the moment, that would have worked.
And if he has a very gullible, stupid girlfriend, it would definitely have worked, right?
I'm sure he does. But the question is as well, why does he have a second phone, red flag? But then again, he's a bit of a ledge in a way. But why? I'm coming. Maybe he's a legend. Why is she going through the phone? There's no trust in that relationship. Now maybe it's because he's the kind of guy that has a second phone. But still, there's no trust.
I think that's actually the major issue. I think if you're with someone who's going through your phone, that's not. It means they don't trust you.
If I found out my husband's second phone, I'd start calling the people who were in there and inviting them over.
Yeah.
I'm desperate. I'm like, let's have a three-way while I can still bend. But the thing is...
we're talking there about just a gathering.
Communication, yes, a gathering. A couple of cigars, a couple of guys around.
Just a meal. Listen, have we got time for another one, by the way? I want to get another one. Right, so quick one from Lucy. So Lucy says, when I got my dog 4 years ago, I called it Putin because he's bold and a bit nuts. Now I get funny looks when I take him out for a walk and call his name. Time for a new name or a new dog. Well, yeah. Well, you can't rename the dog now because it's used to the name Putin. That would be cruel, wouldn't it?
What about renaming it Oswald? That's just...
renaming what?
Oswald.
Oswald, that's perfect.
It was a callback.
That was a callback from earlier in the show.
That was very funny.
What do you think?
Technically.
Kick the dog. Kick the dog. Kick the cats.
What I would say to you, Scott, is your hatred of animals, this visceral hatred of animals.
I just don't like that people let animals indoors. They're dirty. Let them live outside. That's where animals should be tied to a pole outside.
Why would you call your dog Putin anyway? I think you are reaping what you sow there, so I can't help you there. Anyway, look, thanks everyone for joining us for Free Speech Nation this week. This was, of course, the week when gypsy moths were denounced as racist. The SNP declared that sexual predators never lie about who they are, and bars in the UK stopped serving white Russians. The drink, of course, not the demographic. Thank you to my panel, Nick Dixon and Scott Capurro, and to my wonderful guests today, Dr. Shireen Benjamin, Tom Slater from Spiked, Peter Whittle and Andrew Graham Dixon. And by the way, if you want to hear more from Andrew Graham Dixon, you can do that on Free Speech Nation, the podcast. Now, that full interview is live now. You can watch it on YouTube. You can access it wherever you normally download your podcast, Spotify, all the rest of it. And if you want, and this is very key, if you want to join us live here in the studio, be part of our wonderful audience, you can do that. Please go to www.sroaudiences.com. Just apply there. Come along, come to the studio. We've got wine, we've got nibbles. It's a lot of fun. And stay tuned now. We've got the brilliant Mark Dolan tonight. That's coming up next. And don't forget that every night we've got headliners. That's every night at 11 o'clock. I'm often on it. Scott is, Nick is. It's a late-night paper preview show where comedians talk you through the next day's top news stories. Thank you for watching Free Speech Nation. See you next week.
Looking ahead to tomorrow's weather, and the UK is looking like another dry day and a fine day, actually, with plenty of sunshine for many areas. Let's take a look at the detail. First thing, in the southwest, it's going to be largely cloudy, but through the day there will be sunny spells across the region, remaining dry but still a little chilly. Moving further east towards London, another dry start, but chilly here too. Staying dry throughout the day, with sunny or bright spells for many. Moving to South Wales, and it's going to be a bright but chilly start, with a frost for many. Feeling warmer though by the afternoon in the sunshine. Towards the northwest of England, a bright but frosty start, especially across coastlines. Staying dry throughout the day with sunny spells for all across the region. Further east, it's going to be dry and chilly, and a frost across the area. Long sunny spells throughout the day, but still feeling cold in the afternoon. Now over to Scotland, where it's a very similar story. Sunshine throughout the morning for the area, no rain, but frosty first thing. Northern Ireland seeing a morning of sunshine after a chilly and calm start as well to the new working week, turning breezier throughout the rest of the day, but at least remaining dry. And those are all the details. Plenty of long-lived sunshine and dry weather across the UK to be had. And that's how the weather's shaping up during tomorrow morning.
On Mark Dolan tonight, in my big opinion, the lazy, complacent West have played right into Putin's hands. We'll speak to the top author of a book on how China were the real winners of this pandemic. Some fun with my alternative news headlines, tonight featuring social media influencer Molly May Haig. My all-star panel features Scottish Comedian of the Year Leo Kearse, ex-MP Lembit Opik and top commentator Sophie Corcoran. And my Mark Meets guest is